Commander Exeltran stood alone in the viewing chamber of the Remembrance. Through the wide, clear glass, he stared down at the planet below, Earth, once green, blue, and full of life. Now it was gray and lifeless, wrapped in dusty clouds and broken lands. He pressed a hand against the glass. It felt cold, just like the memories that filled his mind. Behind him, the grand hall buzzed with life. Beings from 100 different worlds gathered. Their clothes shimmered. Their voices rose in strange musical languages. Today was meant to honor Earth's fall, a simple ceremony of remembrance. But to Exeltran, it was more. It was a warning that too many were already starting to forget. A soft chime echoed through the chamber. The ceremony was beginning. "Commander Exeltran, you are called to speak," said a mechanical voice over the ship's speakers. He turned, his heavy cloak brushing the smooth floor. His footsteps echoed as he walked toward the great circle where the council and guests waited. Lights dimmed, and all eyes turned to him. He could feel their expectations. Some wanted a few kind words. Some wanted easy stories of bravery and loss. No one wanted the full truth. He reached the center and took a breath. "Long ago," he began, his voice deep but clear, "this world was alive. It was fierce, beautiful, and broken. Stater." He paused. No one moved. "I served alongside humans in their final wars," Exeltran continued. "I fought with them, bled with them, and saw their downfall. They were not only victims, they were the cause of their own ruin." Murmurs spread through the hall. A few officials shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "But we must remember," Exeltran said, his voice growing stronger, "not just their strength, but their mistakes. If we forget their true story, we risk walking the same path." Suddenly, a figure rose from the audience. It was High Curator Mevix. His tall frame was wrapped in golden robes, and his dark eyes glittered with anger. "Commander Exeltran," Mevix said loudly, "this gathering is meant to honor, not accuse. You speak words that divide and poison. We must look to hope, not shame." Exeltran met his gaze without fear. "Hope without truth is a lie," Exeltran replied simply. Gasps rippled across the room. Mevix narrowed his eyes. The tension between them thickened the air. Everyone could feel it. The ceremony ended quickly after that. Exeltran knew this was only the beginning. Mevix would not let him speak freely again. But Exeltran had made his choice. He would tell the true story, no matter the cost. He turned once more to the window and looked down at Earth's dead face. The past was not gone. It was waiting, and soon it would speak again. The next day, Commander Exeltran sat in his private quarters. He stared at an old datapad filled with memories, battle reports, images of fallen cities, faces of soldiers both human and alien. Each piece of data was a wound that never healed. A soft knock came at the door. "Enter," Exeltran said. The door slid open, and a young Zellari officer stepped in. Her silver skin shimmered under the dim lights. "Commander, the council has asked you to give another address," she said carefully. "They want it gentle this time." Exeltran gave a small, sad smile. "Gentle," he repeated. "They want lies covered in soft words." The officer shifted uncomfortably. "They just don't want panic." Exeltran nodded. He understood, but he also knew that panic was better than forgetting. Later, he stood again before the council and the gathered guests. This time, fewer had come. Word had spread that Exeltran spoke truths many did not want to hear. He looked out at them, feeling the weight of their hopes and fears. He took a breath and began. "I fought with the humans," he said. "I saw their great courage but also their terrible anger. Their wars were not forced upon them by aliens or nature. They were born from within. Pride, greed, fear." A large screen lit up behind him. Images appeared, ruined cities, burning forests, oceans turned black. "This is what they did to their own world," Exeltran said. "And yet they fought with everything they had. Not for greed in the end, but for survival." They became their own enemies, and their own last heroes. The hall was silent, no music, no murmurs, just the heavy weight of truth pressing down on everyone. Suddenly a voice rang out. "Enough," shouted High Curator Mivix, rising from his seat. His golden robe shimmered as he pointed at Zeltran. "You dishonor them," Mivix cried. "We are here to remember Earth with pride, not to drag their memory through the mud." Zeltran faced him calmly. "If we only remember the good," he said quietly, "we forget the lessons that could save us." Mivix stepped forward, his face twisted in anger. "You will stop, Commander. I will bring charges against you if you continue this madness." Gasps spread through the crowd. Even Zeltran's old friends looked uncertain. They feared Mivix's power. Zeltran simply nodded. "I will speak the truth," he said. "Whatever the cost." He turned and left the hall, leaving behind a room full of fear, anger, and broken silence. As he walked the empty halls of the remembrance, Zeltran felt a deep sadness. It was harder than he thought it would be. Telling the truth was not just a battle against lies. It was a battle against comfort, against forgetting. But he would not stop. Not now, not ever. The night after the council meeting, the ship Remembrance drifted quietly through space. Most of the guests had returned to their quarters, whispering fears and doubts behind closed doors. But not everyone was silent. Commander Zeltran sat in a small, forgotten briefing room deep inside the ship. The lights were dim. The air smelled faintly of metal and dust. Slowly, the door slid open. A group of young cadets entered, their steps careful and unsure. They wore simple uniforms and curious expressions. Some of them had heard his speech. Others had only heard the rumors. "Commander," one cadet said, saluting nervously, "we want to hear more, the real stories." Zeltran studied them. Their faces were young, their minds open but fragile. They had not yet been shaped by politics or fear. They deserved the truth. "Sit," he said simply. They gathered around him, sitting cross-legged on the cold floor. Zeltran leaned back in his chair, looking at the small group. "Do you know why Earth died?" he asked. The cadets shook their heads. "Some say it was war," Zeltran said. "Some say it was greed. They are both right, and both wrong." He tapped a button, and a hologram appeared in the air. It showed a battlefield. Human soldiers, dirty and tired, fought among ruins. Smoke filled the sky. The ground was cracked and dead. "They fought because they were afraid," Zeltran said softly. "Afraid of losing what little they had left. Afraid of enemies outside, and enemies within." He changed the image. Now it showed children in broken schools, families digging through rubble for food. "They were not monsters," Zeltran said. "They were desperate. And in their desperation, they destroyed what they loved most." The cadets listened in silence, eyes wide. They had never seen images like these. Their teachers had spoken of humanity's tragic heroism, not this raw, painful reality. A young cadet raised her hand. "Commander, was there no hope?" Zeltran smiled sadly. "There was hope," he said. "There were moments when they could have changed, when peace was within reach, but fear always won." He turned off the hologram and looked each cadet in the eye. "Remember this," he said. "Despair did not kill Earth. Fear did. The fear of losing power. The fear of change." The room grew heavy with emotion. Another cadet whispered, "Why are they hiding this from us?" Zeltran leaned forward, his voice low and serious. "Because truth is heavy," he said. "And those in power often fear the weight of it." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, one by one, the cadets stood and saluted him. "Thank you, Commander," the first one said. "We won't forget." As they filed out into the dark corridors, Zeltran stayed behind, staring at the empty doorway. He knew this small group might be the beginning of something larger, or it might be the end of his freedom. Either way, he had taken the first step. The shadows of the past were stirring again, and soon they would demand to be heard. The next morning, Commander Zeltran was summoned to the High Council chamber. 2 guards escorted him through the gleaming halls of the Remembrance. Their faces were blank, their steps firm. It was clear they were not just offering protection. They were making sure he could not slip away. The large doors to the chamber slid open with a hiss. Inside, rows of council members sat in a half-circle. Their robes shimmered under the bright white lights. At the center stood High Curator Mivix, tall and proud, his golden robe gleaming like a crown. "Commander Exeltrin," Mivix announced, his voice booming across the hall. "You have been charged with spreading dangerous and unauthorized knowledge. You are accused of breaking the peace and sowing fear." Exeltrin stood calmly in the center of the room. His hands were steady by his sides. His heart, though heavy, did not waver. "I have spoken only the truth," Exeltrin replied. Mivix raised a hand, signaling for silence. "You speak of destruction, fear, and failure," Mivix said. "You tarnish the memory of Earth, and you plant seeds of distrust in our young." Exeltrin met Mivix's hard gaze. He saw not just anger there, but fear. Mivix was afraid of what might happen if others started to listen. "I have planted seeds, yes," Exeltrin said firmly, "but seeds of understanding, not hate." The room grew tense. Council members whispered among themselves. Some looked uncertain. Others seemed furious. "You leave us no choice," Mivix said sharply. "You will face a formal debate before the entire Galactic Council. You will defend your actions publicly." Exeltrin nodded once. "I accept," he said. The council members murmured in surprise. Public debates were rare and dangerous. A single mistake could end a career, or worse. Mivix smiled, but it was cold and sharp. "You may present your case," Mivix said, "but know this, Commander. If you lose, your version of history will be erased. All records of your human tales will be destroyed, and you will be silenced." Exeltrin felt the weight of the threat. He would not only lose his voice, he would lose everything he had fought to preserve. Still, he straightened his back and spoke clearly. "I will stand for the truth," he said. "Even if I stand alone." Mivix turned, his golden robe swirling behind him, and left the chamber without another word. The council session ended in silence. Exeltrin walked out alone, feeling the cold air bite at his skin. In the dark corridors of the ship, he thought about the young cadets. He thought about Earth. He thought about the heavy cost of speaking out. He would face Mivix. He would speak, and he would not let the past be buried. The grand debate hall of the Remembrance was packed. Beings from every corner of the galaxy filled the seats. Their colorful clothes and different faces showed how many worlds had come to witness this moment. A public debate was rare. A public debate about Earth's dark past was unheard of. Commander Exeltrin stood on the left side of the stage. His cloak hung heavy on his shoulders, but he stood tall. Across from him stood High Curator Mivix, smiling coldly, his golden robes shining under the lights. The council president rose from her seat. "Today," she said, "we hear two voices. One that calls for truth, one that calls for peace. Both seek the future. Only one will guide us there." A soft chime sounded. The debate had begun. Mivix stepped forward first. His voice was smooth, polished. "Honored guests," he began. "We remember Earth for its bravery, its dreams, its spirit. These are the memories we must protect. To dig up shame, to show only the worst is to poison hope." Many in the crowd nodded. His words were easy, comforting. Exeltrin waited until Mivix finished, then stepped forward. "I remember Earth too," Exeltrin said simply. "I remember the bravery. I remember the dreams, but I also remember the fear, the destruction, the mistakes." He tapped a button on the small panel before him. Above the stage, a giant hologram appeared, an image of a burning human city. Soldiers and civilians ran through smoke and fire. The crowd gasped. This, Exeltrin said, was Earth's truth too. He showed more images. Oceans turned black from pollution, forests turned to dust, skyships raining fire over broken lands. They fought for survival, Exeltrin continued. But they also fought out of hate, greed, and pride. If we only remember the good, we lose the lessons that could save us. Mivix stepped forward quickly. "These images are cruel," he said. "They bring fear, not hope. Commander Exeltron would have us wallow in guilt instead of moving forward." Exeltron faced the crowd. "I do not ask you to wallow," he said, his voice steady. "I ask you to remember, to learn, to protect the future by facing the past." He paused, then added quietly, "If you forget how the world ended once, you will not see it ending again." The hall grew still. From the audience, a young cadet, one of those who had met Exeltron in secret, stood up. "I want to know the full truth," she called out. Another voice joined her, then another. Soon, a wave of agreement rippled through the hall. Mivix's face tightened in anger, but he could not stop the shift. Truth had taken root. The council president stood. "The council will vote," she announced. Lights flashed on each council member's seat. Green for Exeltron's truth, red for Mivix's memory. The lights blinked for a long, painful moment. Then one by one they turned green. Exeltron had won. The truth would not be erased. Mivix turned away, defeated, his golden robe no longer gleaming so brightly. Exeltron stood alone on the stage, feeling the weight lift slightly from his shoulders. The fallen had found their voice at last. The council chamber emptied slowly. Some guests left quietly. Heads bowed in thought. Others whispered to one another, their faces a mix of wonder and worry. Commander Exeltron remained standing at the center of the hall. The lights above him dimmed, but he didn't move. He wanted to remember this moment, the moment when truth had been chosen over comfort. A group of young cadets approached him. They saluted, their faces full of pride and respect. "Thank you, Commander," one of them said. "You gave them a voice." Celtran nodded. His throat felt tight. He had carried the weight of Earth's memory for so long. Now it belonged to all of them. Across the room, High Curator Mivix stood alone. His golden robe hung heavily, no longer a symbol of power but of defeat. Two council guards approached him. Mivix raised his hands calmly, but his face was cold and bitter. The council president spoke clearly so all could hear. "High Curator Mivix, you are stripped of your title. You are found guilty of suppressing history for personal gain. You will no longer serve the Galactic Archives." There was no applause, just silence. Heavy and final, Mivix was led away without resistance. He did not look back. Celtran finally stepped down from the stage. He felt the ship itself almost sigh in relief, as if the remembrance understood that something important had been saved. Later, in a smaller, quieter meeting, the council announced their decision. The history of Earth would be recorded fully. The good and the bad. Every generation would learn not just of humanity's bravery, but of its mistakes. Not to shame them, but to teach them. One council member, a tall, thin being from the planet Orin, stood and spoke. "Memory without truth is a lie," she said. "We must teach our children the whole story, so they build a better future." Celtran listened, his heart heavy but hopeful. He knew there would still be battles ahead. Many would resist the darker parts of history. Some would still prefer soft lies to hard truths. But today, the right path had been chosen. As the meeting ended, Celtran stepped outside the hall. He looked out a nearby window. Below them, Earth drifted quietly in space. Dead, but not forgotten. A small blue light glowed in one corner of the planet's surface. A team of researchers trying to restore a patch of land. A tiny sign of hope. Celtran smiled for the first time in many days. Memory had won. And with it, the future had a chance. The corridors of the remembrance were quiet. Commander Celtran walked slowly through them, his boots tapping softly against the polished floor. The day had ended. The council had made its decision. The truth would live on. But the weight inside him did not lift easily. He made his way to the observation deck, his favorite place on the ship. A wide wall of glass stretched before him, showing the endless stars and the broken, silent Earth below. He stood there for a long time, hands clasped behind his back, simply watching. In the reflection of the glass, he saw movement. Turning slightly, He noticed the group of young cadets entering the deck. They didn't speak. They simply stood beside him, offering silent support. Inseltron smiled at them. A soft, small smile. "You are the future," he said quietly. "You must remember the weight of what we carry." The cadets nodded, their faces serious. Inseltron looked back at Earth. He remembered standing on its surface long ago, when there were still green trees and deep oceans. He remembered the sounds of human voices singing, shouting, crying. He remembered battles fought in the name of peace, and battles that only brought ruin. Now, Earth was silent. But in that silence, there was also a lesson. "One day," Inseltron said, "you will face your own choices. You will feel the fear, the anger, the pride that once consumed this world. When that day comes, remember this." He paused, his voice steady. "Remember that the past speaks. Listen to it." The cadets listened carefully, knowing they were hearing the final words of a man who had carried the past for all of them. The ship's lights dimmed as the night cycle began. One by one, the cadets left the observation deck, their footsteps light and careful, as if not to disturb the ghosts of Earth. Inseltron remained. He placed a hand gently on the glass, feeling the cold through his glove. "You are not forgotten," he whispered. He stood there until the stars blurred into the edges of his vision. His long watch was over, his duty to memory complete. Commander Xeltron turned and left the deck, his steps slow but steady. The past had been spoken. The future now belonged to those brave enough to remember.